Monday, January 8th. Today is going to be a busy day. Probably for you too. Any day can be a busy day, but I say that because I tailored tonight's dinner to be a little bit more easy, some things I can do ahead of time, something that can come together fast. And so it's not yet dinner time, but I wanted to kind of start off the video to open this up before things get too crazy. And so, hi, I'm Amanda. This is the Happy Homestead. We are in the midst of the Three Rivers Challenge, the Pantry Challenge, where we're using what we have, we're cooking from scratch, we're cooking homemade meals, and not spending money unnecessarily. So for dinner tonight, we are going to have pan-fried lemon pepper salmon, rice pilaf with mushroom, and sauteed zucchini and onions. So the goal is to create a very well-balanced nutritionally and belly-filling meal while also using what we have and having it be fast to put together. I'm going to cook the salmon and the squash or the zucchini later, right before we eat, because that really won't take too much time. So I have, this is the remaining bag. I had pulled from this bag last week when I put some of the zucchini in our minestrone soup, but this is what is left. And so I'm gonna be using all of this. I'm just unsure if it's gonna be enough. If I have to, I can open some green beans too to add to the meal. But we're gonna be cooking that in a saute pan with some sliced onions, a little bit of olive oil, salt, pepper. This is one of our favorite ways to cook summer squash in the summer from the garden. And so my thought when I had froze these, and I've got 3 more bags in the freezer just like that, that in the dead of winter, we can still enjoy that summer fresh flavor. That's the goal. Okay, so that's the summer squash with onions sauteed. Then we have some salmon. So I buy salmon once a year from a local fisherwoman, and we get it every fall. So I picked this up, I think, in November of last year. I've got 4 of these fillets pulled out. They're in the refrigerator. They don't take much time to thaw, so I didn't actually take them out last night. We're going to saute them, kind of pan fry them, flesh side down, skin side up. We're gonna season them first with some lemon pepper seasoning from Redmond Real Salt, and then we're gonna pan fry those, flip them, add some lemon slices, get our squash going. So that's gonna cook right before it's time to eat. But what I can make ahead of time is what I've kind of got here laid out on the counter. This is for our rice pilaf. So I have organic brown jasmine rice. I've got a bunch of different spices, and I've got a can of mushroom slices as well as some stock. Now, in my opinion, one of the best ways to make the most delicious and even just collagen-rich rice, or any type of grain for that matter, it could be couscous, it could be barley, is using stock instead of water. Now, if you're not making your own stock, you need to start, because it costs very little money and it is one of the most nutrient-rich foods that you can have in your pantry. You don't have to can it. If you're not comfortable canning it, you can freeze it, and it's just as good. So we will be making our rice pilaf with our chicken stock and the mushrooms and some spices and herbs, and make that all delicious too. So the rice is what I'm gonna do ahead of time so that when we are ready to eat, that's done, and I just have to cook the other 2 things on the stove. So before we get cooking, I also just wanted to give an update from last night's dinner with our sausage stuffed winter squash and our beet spreadable cheese bread. Everybody loved it. I could not believe it. The kids were really kind of hemming and hawing when they saw the beets on the bread. But after they tried it, and they kind of dared each other to do so, they both loved it, and everyone ate their dinner. And there's actually no leftovers in the refrigerator from last night, which is my goal, because I know there'll be leftovers at some point, and so I don't want them to constantly build up. So starting the day fresh, starting the week fresh here on Monday, and we'll get into making our pilaf. So cooking rice on the stove is one of my kind of easy go-to side dishes, especially something like this, like a wild mushroom pilaf or I don't know if I can call it a wild mushroom. It's just a mushroom pilaf. It's so simple, so easy. You can put it together so fast. So I just have kind of like a medium saucepan here on the stove. I've already added 2 tablespoons of butter. Now, my ratio with stock to rice is usually 1 cup of rice to 1 1/4 cups of stock or water, should you choose to use water. I have a pint here, so this is essentially 2 cups, but I'm gonna do just about 2 cups of rice, and that should give us around 3.5 to 4 cups of cooked rice, a cooked product to use. So that way you can kind of think about how much you want to have left over. I usually say it's double. If you're cooking a cup, you're gonna end up with about 2 cups. So I haven't turned the burner on yet, but I'm actually just gonna get all of my liquid and herbs and spices in here. So like I said, 2 tablespoons of butter is already in the pan. Adding in my 2 cups of chicken stock, my 1 6.5 ounce can of mushrooms. I did drain them. I'm gonna add in about a teaspoon of dried onion. You could do onion powder also. You could do fresh garlic. I'm just gonna do a little bit of garlic powder, maybe about a teaspoon. And then I also like to add dried parsley, about a teaspoon. Now, my chicken stock is already salted, but I'm going to add just a tad bit more, maybe about a 1/4 teaspoon, as well as some freshly ground pepper. I'm gonna put the lid on because now what I want to do is really melt that butter, bring everything together into a boil. So I'm gonna turn my burner on medium high. In the meantime, I will start to measure out at least the first cup of rice. Remember, we're gonna do 2 cups, but I'm gonna start to measure out the first. So our water and butter and spices are all boiled together. We're gonna add in our 2 cups of rice. I just like to move the pan around a little bit to kind of stir it. We're gonna put the lid on and turn it down to medium low. This will cook for about 20-ish minutes. It's really up until the liquid is all absorbed, but I like to keep it on a medium low, anywhere from 20 to 25 minutes. Then you can take it off the burner, leave the lid on, and it will be fine until we're ready to eat dinner. So the zucchini are still fairly frozen, even though they were in the fridge for about 5 or 6 hours. I have that burner on medium heat, and I'm going to be adding in, or on top of, the salmon, our Redmond Real Salt Organic Lemon Pepper Seasoning. But I'm not cooking those yet. I actually think this squash is gonna take a good 10 or 15 minutes. And I want to get that kind of cooked before I get the salmon started, because that will cook pretty fast. So I've got the salmon out here on the counter. It's still very cold, so it can just sit here for a little bit before we season it and put it in the pan. And our rice is already done.
has to be. Look it! Okay, you did break her. Help me! Yeah, go good. You got this, baby. Look at it. I'm going to put it in this man. Okay.
So the zucchini and onions are done. I turned the burner off and I flipped the salmon, as you can see, squeezed some lemon juice on it, put the lemon peel on it, and then I actually turned the burner off while the lid is on because salmon and fish in general cook, I think, pretty fast, and you don't ever want to overcook it. I actually really enjoy salmon when it's pan fried and the middle of it is just still a little like dark pink, just a tad, right? I think that's perfectly cooked. So that's what I'm going for here. Can I help you? Joke's on you. I can edit you out. Just like that. Bon appetit.